All right, our friends, we're back with another episode of VA Radio. Do you have an adjective for us?
I do, sir. We have another redoubtable episode of VA Radio. Yes, from the ancient Mesopotamian word meaning commanding or evoking respect, reverence, or the like.
Wow. I thought it was like, you can doubt us one more time because...
That's what I thought, too.
We're full of nonsense. I'm Kevin Oeste, joined, as always, by our esteemed co-host, Mr. Mike Cueball Clarke. And what the heck is going on back in the garage this time, huh?
Yeah, back in the garage. The weather's finally nice. It's not an ice box in here, so this is where I like to be.
Right. Yeah, me too. It's nice.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, the weather's breaking here in the Midwest, and actually drove the 70 Riv today for a little while.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Always kind of have that... I get to drive it every once in a while, but I always make the list. As soon as you get behind the wheel, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot that wheel bearing's making noise, and
yeah,
I got to do an oil change, and this weather strip is coming apart, and blah blah blah. So the list is ever growing, but that's okay. That's why we do this stuff.
It's part of the joys of classic car ownership.
That's right. They never keep you bored.
You got that right.
Yeah. So we typically start this show with a trivia question, in which we stump each other's chumps, respectively. And you had alerted me that you had one.
Yes.
In fact, your text was, I have a good trivia question, not some BS off-the-wall nonsense either.
Exactly.
Which effectively put me on notice, I think.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I found it pretty interesting, so I wanted to throw it out there.
All right. So were you suggesting that my questions are
No. I'm talking only about me, man. Only about me.
Not the kind of crap that you put out.
Right.
I got a good
drivel that everyone else has to listen to. Mm-hmm. But mine's good stuff.
All right. Well, Mr. Good Stuff, why don't you go first?
All right. Well, let's do it. Okay. Kevin, if you happen to be a GI in the mid-'60s and wanted to, say you were stationed in Germany and you heard about this really cool new car called the Mustang from Ford, and you wanted to buy one. However, if you try to buy a Mustang in Germany, you'd be buying a commercial vehicle as another company called Krupp Motoren und Kraftwagenfabriken had owned the rights to the name Mustang. So, in order for Ford to sell that in Germany, what did they call the Mustang in Germany?
Yeah, that is a great question because you're right. They didn't have the access to the name. And I'd also heard that Ford kind of rationalized that a little bit by potentially suggesting that the idea of the wild Mustang horse might not have resonated with the European market as well. Although I certainly think it would have,
Yeah, I think so too.
So I knew the name at one point, and it's something like the T2 or the TKO or
not the TKO.
It's no. I believe it's a letter number combination. It's not really a name. I'm just trying to remember what they are.
Well, that's the trick, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the root of your
that's why we're
BS,
here, right?
Not off the wall nonsense question. Man, what the heck was it? These are the aggravating ones because I knew this.
Right.
I'm just to keep our listener from going out of his or her mind. I'm just going to say oh man, what am I going to call this? Because I know, in Europe they use a lot of acronyms that mean stuff, like the sister company of Ford being Mercury. In the 80s you could buy an XR4 Ti, and there was an XR series, a 4-cylinder turbo intercool. So everything had or injected. It wasn't intercooled injection. So, man, I know why it is. I don't know what it is. So I'm just going to call it the T.
Bum, bum,
I know.
Bum, bum, bum.
It could be. I could call it the FU at this point. It's not really bad. It's a letter number. So the M1 is what I'm going to call it. But
The M1.
yeah, but please give me a little credit at the end because I know why, but I don't know what.
All right. So Kevin is going the BMW route and saying M1.
Yeah, but that's not what it is. I think it's got a T in it. I guess we'll find out.
Yes, Kevin, we'll find out at the end of the show.
If it comes to me, I'm going to blurt it out halfway through, but I doubt it.
All right.
All right, well, I guess I'll reciprocate with a trivia question.
All right, let's have it.
How do I phrase this? Because there's many potential trivia questions in this.
Oh, boy, okay.
Yeah. Okay, I guess we'll say that General Motors was the first company to offer an automatic high beam dimming system on their cars.
Automatic high beam dimming system, okay.
Right, and this is a safety and courtesy feature. As you're
yes.
motoring down the highways and byways of the world, and you got your high beams on because it's dark. As somebody approaches you, it senses that and dims the lights. So we could make this a 3-parter.
Oh, aren't you kind?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to like I said, there's many ways to do this. We'll do one actual and 2 bonus.
Whichever way twists the knife deeper.
Yeah.
We'll go with that one, all right?
Well, this is purely because I'm so frustrated about the German Herr Mustang. So, what was the first year for this technology in a General Motors product? That's the question. And the bonus is, what was the name of it? And
wow.
The name changed, and what did it become?
You got it. Come on.
Those are just bonus. You don't have to get
Well,
those.
to steal your phrase, Kevin, you suck out loud.
Oh, nice. Okay, all right. I'll tell you one better. You get any one of the 3 right, you win. How about that?
Oh, all right.
That's the kind of guy I am.
You're quite the giver. All right. Auto headlight dimming, high beam dimming technology in GM cars. I'll say it debuted in 1994.
Wow. 94. 94, it was a good year.
Yeah, I'll say it came in on Cadillacs is what I'm gonna guess. I mean, that's not part of the question, but
adding your own potential bonus.
Yeah, add my own little extra credit. See if you'll take that.
Well, I did.
You were right about Cadillac, Mike. Yeah. And it was called the.
All right, good. I don't feel so bad.
Yeah. We'll say it was called Auto High Beam Dimmer.
All right.
And then it was changed to Safety Dim. Oh, good.
Ooh, nice.
Good gravy. All right.
Auto High Beam Dimmer.
Tap it in there, buddy.
In 1994, and then it changed to Safety Dim.
Yeah.
And how would you spell that? Is it like the Pontiac thing where it's safe-t-dim?
Yeah, sure. All right. If that gets me closer, then we'll say yeah.
Right. I like that. Well, GM was known for making up words like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And
Posse traction.
Yes.
Sure grip. Well, that was a Chrysler thing. Anyway.
So
I digress.
And you said Cadillac as just a fun extra.
Little tidbit. Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay. You know, I noticed that bits only come in tids. You know, you can have a tidbit, but you can't have like a tid part or a tid section.
Bite.
Yeah, a tid bite. It's only a bit.
Tidbit.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. That's noted, and we apologize for everybody who's listening because this is agony even for us.
10 minutes to get through this damn trivia question.
So I was reflecting on the last trivia question, which was about the stoplight in Cleveland, Ohio.
Yes, sir.
When I was in Ohio this past week.
Oh, right.
Yes. And had a tremendous visit to Forgeline Motorsports.
Yes. Yeah, we saw that picture of you holding that giant, what was that, a 20-inch rim, holding up with one arm?
Yes, that was a 20 by 12.5 carbon fiber rim barrel. And the manufacturer claims that they are laughably light because you pick it up and you laugh. You go, oh, man, this thing doesn't weigh anything.
That's nice.
And it was an amazing visit, and I'll tell you why.
Lay it on me.
Yeah, because you're sitting over there. So what I learned about Forgeline Motorsports is there is, and in full disclosure, the reason why I was there is because they hired our video production team to help them create some videos to help tell their story about the company and also about some of the wheels and about the process and things they're going to use in commercials and social media and stuff like that. We do a lot of video production for companies that are not just us, and I always enjoy doing that because they chose us because we are a Forgeline wheel dealer at our own shop. We've built several cars using Forgeline wheels. We know their product pretty well, but we're also an automotive genre production company. So if they would have hired some guy with a camera down the street that normally does other stuff, they might not get the message as well as we do, because we're car guys, so
right,
and that's hard to find in the TV world.
Yeah, you don't necessarily want to hire a wedding videographer to do their Forgeline wheel spot.
right. Well, and nothing against it. That's one of the cool things about the business is if you're in a video production business, you get to be exposed to a lot of different kinds of things.
True.
And we've done stuff for a local landscaping company, and I've certainly shot weddings in the past. And I look at those as kind of fun exercises to get outside the box. Right. But in this case, it was full attention at Forgeline. And this conversation that we're having is not part of what they hired me for. I'm just telling you this because I think it's cool.
Right.
This isn't a placement or anything. This is organic. So of the zillion things that I learned and I really admire about this company is, so many people have seen Forgeline wheels on, pro touring cars on the street and, at racetrack events. And you wonder, what's the deal? Because you can buy wheels from any number of different companies, and I'm not saying any are better or worse than others. But the Forgeline brand is very popular in the high performance world. And what I learned is the story of how this company came to be. And the short version is that there's two brothers today that run the company, Steve and Dave Shard, and their father's involved. And their father used to work at GM in Ohio, and at some point learned that the Dayton Wire Wheel Company, which you're undoubtedly familiar with.
No, absolutely.
Anything with wires since 1914, chances are it's Dayton.
Oh, right on.
So at one point, and I'm not 100% sure on the date, but years ago, the Dayton Wire Wheel Company was in financial trouble. So the Shard brothers, their dad actually went to the local bank and said, I understand Dayton Wire Wheel's in trouble. And he was looking to get away from having a day job with GM. And he said, what's their problem? And the bank actually said, well, they've got cash flow problems. They got creditors that they owe. They've got some supply problems, typical things that can happen to a business, especially when the market is getting soft on their product. And just like an American fairy tale, he went and negotiated with the bank and with all the creditors and obtained the company.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and brought it back to a level of success. And his two sons were young at the time, Steve and Dave, and they both grew up working at Dayton Wire Wheel. So these are young guys now who are learning how to re-spoke a wheel, how to assemble a spoked wheel, how to true a rim, how to make a rim, how to straighten them, how to chrome plate them, how to polish them, how to do colors, how to do everything about the wheel business, sizing, fitment, learning about the strength of wire wheels. Because back then, there were Indy cars that raced on Dayton Wire wheels. These were one of the premier wheel companies in the world.
I did not know this.
There was a racing background there too, and Steve and Dave grew up because their dad also liked racing, so they grew up on the racetrack. First with go-karts and racing each other, but then racing Yanko Stinger Corvair on road courses. Yeah. And they pointed out that if you can race a Yanko Stinger Corvair, you can drive just about anything, because
I would agree with that.
The balance is a little different and everything else. So time goes by, and so they realized that there was a hole in the market for an American-made, truly custom racing wheel. Okay, so by this time they're getting into racing bigger series and V8 cars, and I guess maybe Porsche 944s and stuff like that. So still some import, 4-cylinder cars, but you could get racing wheels out of Italy, or you could get them, like BBS wheels in Europe, but there was nothing made here in the U.S. So they set out to make an all-American racing wheel, and one that was designed to be raced primarily. And then if you wanted to drive it on the street, that's fine. But this was supposed to be a racing forged aluminum wheel. Mm-hmm. So they launched the Forgeline brand. They came up with the name Forgeline because forging had to be part of it's the first name,
Right.
And the reason why everything is forged and the way forging works is you can melt aluminum and pour it into a mold, and that's a casting. Right. But I don't know if you remember I always think of the old commercial for I don't know what candy bar it was, but they would snap the candy bar in half, and you would see little air bubbles inside. Oh yeah. When they melted it. Well, that's what happens with the casting, is you have little bubbles and pockets and porosity in the casting. Okay. So by forging it, what you do is you start with a casting, and then you smash it essentially under high amounts of pressure or weight, and it pushes all the molecules together, and on a bigger scale, it squeezes out all those air bubbles, so you have more material in the same space. Right. But it also kind of aligns the grain of the material so that it becomes stronger by design as well. So they made what they call a race spec wheel. And at that point, I don't know if it was a 2-piece or a 3. I think it was a 2-piece where they were welding the center into the barrel. Eventually they got away from that, and now they do a 1-piece and a 3-piece. But at the end of the day, they were successful in making these race spec wheels. And I asked him, what's a race spec wheel? What does that even mean?
It's a good question.
To us, a wheel's a wheel. And he said, well, here's the deal. What we looked at was, in order to design a spec wheel for a racing class, they looked at the series that the car was going to be raced in. They looked at the weight of the car. Then they looked at the power level of the car. Then they looked at the allowable wheel and tire size. Mm-hmm. Then they looked at the friction coefficient of the tire for that particular class. Then they looked at the size of the brakes to see what would fit in there, and then designed something strong enough that would fit in all those parameters and not fail, right?
Right. Yeah, sure.
So this is truly, designed for that particular series. And then they would name the wheel based on that series. And Forgeline has kind of a unique naming system. So if it was designed for the Trans the Grand Am series would be a GA, and if it was a 3-piece, it'd be a GA3, and it was the first design GA31, whatever. And then they put a high quality finish on the wheel as well, to protect it, and also so that when people saw them, they would say, "Hey, that looks nice," also. So now the story is filling out that these are two guys that grew up racing, that are designing racing wheels, that are tested. Today, everything is designed in-house with finite element analysis engineering done. So it's tested before it's built. It's tested after it's built. These wheels perform, number one. And the fact that they look awesome with their finishes they apply is kind of, it's just as important, but it's a secondary function. And as they worked with different racing series, they designed new wheels to fit those different specs. So they did some for the Trans Am series, they did some for the World Challenge series, and the Corvette racing and all that stuff.
Right.
So people caught on and started running them on street cars that they were autocrossing or weekend warrior type road racing, and as these. The cars that we've put them on, coincidentally, most of them have been 69 Camaros that have all been supercharged. So like the ZR9 Camaro that we did, the loose change Camaro, and we've got this silver 69 in the shop right now getting the LT4 motor. They've all got forge lines, and some of those were style motivated and association motivated. Like, you want the car to look racy, so you put the racy parts on it.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, we don't have to worry at all that customer can go track that car with those wheels, and they're there. They're not going to be a weak link on this package,
right?
And so the design and the company history is fascinating. The next thing that I thought was really, really cool is the manufacturing of the wheels.
Right. That's right. That's what I like to see.
Yeah. So the plant is in Dayton, Ohio, and everything is U.S. done. So, and it's very simple and very smart. So their designs, and when I say simple, I'm not saying easy, but I'm saying they've taken complexities out of this stuff. So they come up with a wheel design, and they have an in-house guy, engineer, who designs it on screen in SolidWorks and creates the face design. These guys don't own the forge. They bring those in, but it's an American supplier that supplies the barrels, and an American supplier that supplies what I'll call the blank forgings that become the center.
Okay.
And when those two pieces arrive at Forgeline, they match the barrel and the center to the customer's order for size and style. The barrel goes through a process of getting machined to look nicer. Or if it's polished, they come in polished. The wheel center goes through a multi-step machine process using American-made CNC machines to refine that forged aluminum center into a stylized wheel face.
Okay. Sure.
And those operations are cool. They spin it, then they put it in this 5-axis CNC machine that carves out the design. And then when it comes out of that, there's a hand operation of a grinding room. And you've got these guys who are just incredible craftsmen that are taking that center and using air-powered die grinders and little tools to deburr the spokes and take any flashing off or anything that the CNCs didn't catch. And in some cases, some of these wheels, when you look at them, if it's a spoked wheel, the spoke design is very, very intricate, where it's like an I-beam shaped spoke. It's just not like a rectangular thing.
I got you.
As you turn it and look closely at it, you can see there's concaves and little faces of the spokes. And some of that stuff is done by hand in the grinding room. And especially if that finish choice at the end is going to be a transparent powder coat, where you're supposed to see like a brushed line come through it, like a brushed aluminum appearance. Those are done by hand. So these guys are doing...
Wow.
Oh, yeah. They're doing cosmetic work in that grinding room as well.
Huh.
Once the center is ground, and at every station it's checked for, to make sure it's still a proper shape and it's true and all that stuff. Right. But then it's cleaned they have a powder coating facility in-house, and they clean all the machining oil off of everything, and then it goes to powder coating, and they have a proprietary process to get these things clean so that their powder coating is show quality, and nice. Absolutely phenomenal. Yeah. And they've got a book of standard colors that they offer, but they also work with another company that can supply absolutely any powder that's available in any color you want. And for example, we used on the Lose Change Camaro, we had a brushed aluminum barrel. The wheel rim itself was brushed. Well, that whole brush operation is done by hand.
Wow.
It's perfect looking. And you would think there was some big thing that they'd put it in, and a big drum sander would, no, it's all done by hand. Huh. And after the wheels are powder coated, then they go to the assembly table, and one guy puts every single wheel together himself.
Wow.
And
jeez,
there's a minimum of 40 ARP fasteners that bolt the two barrels in a three-piece with the center together. And if you can imagine a racing wheel, there's a possibility it's going to get damaged. It's either going to get scratched up, or you're going to leave the raceway and hit a off-track whatever.
Right. Something, tweak the wheel up.
Yep. And you could bend it or something. So they're all designed to be disassembled and repaired.
Wow.
So
that's pretty slick.
You can unbolt these wheels. And now if you're thinking like I was, I'm hearing the story and I'm like, well, this is an aluminum center and it's a stainless fastener. Aluminum and stainless don't really get along.
Right.
Because they'll gall and they'll ruin threads. Well, they've got that covered because every one of these centers have helicoil inserts threaded into them.
No way.
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
So you can, so you could take them apart and put them back together repeatedly and not, change the strength of the wheel or ruin any threads. So there's a kind of a neat process where the assembly guy lays the barrel down and the face down and the fasteners and kind of picks up the center. So most of their wheel designs have what they call blind fasteners. So when you look at it from the front, you don't see any bolts. You look from the back, and that's where all the bolts come in. So they kind of build them backwards.
Okay.
Once he gets it tightened up, each fastener is torqued properly. Then it gets spun on a Hunter digital wheel mount machine to make sure it's still, the front barrel and the rear barrel are lined up and everything. Then they run a bead of silicone around it to make sure it doesn't leak at the two barrel junctions. And then they get boxed up and they get shipped out. So there's every kind of neat process you can imagine between the 3D digital design, the 3D CNC machine process, then a craftsman hand process, then the powder coat process, then the assembly by hand. And so none of their wheels are welded anymore because the three-piece are bolt together.
Okay.
And then they do a one-piece monoblock wheel, which comes in looking like, if you take the cap off of an aerosol can, a tall plastic cap,
sure.
Imagine that 20 inches around.
Oh, boy.
That's what the one-piece wheel looks like when they come in. And the whole thing is machined at once. So the back side of the barrel, the front side of the face, because there's no parts that it's all one piece. It's a monoblock. Those come in at 120 pounds of aluminum.
Woof.
And they machine off like 80, 90 pounds of chips to make the final wheel.
Wow. I hope they recycle.
Oh, yeah. And they've got these conveyor belts of aluminum going out to recycle outside of the machines and everything.
Yeah, it sounds like they really have a lot of attention to detail when they design and manufacture these wheels. And back to where you're saying they come and they get these blank hoops in. So I imagine when a customer orders these, I'm sure they have standard offsets and backspaces that they offer, but a customer can call in and say, "Hey, I would like, you don't offer a 5-inch backspace. Can I get this 12-inch wide wheel with a 7-inch backspace and this much of an offset?" And they could do that.
Exactly.
Correct?
Every single wheel is custom.
Gotcha.
There's nothing on the shelf. There is no inventory. Wow. Made to order, every single one.
All just-in-time shipment.
Well, and so that's a great point, is the wheel industry is notorious for delays. if you order a set of custom, especially custom wheels, if it's an off-the-shelf wheel, you might wait a couple of weeks. Some places might have them in stock. But when you're going to order something custom, we're hearing lead times of 14 weeks, 3 and 4 month lead time. And some of that is because the custom wheel manufacturers do different parts of the process themselves, and other companies do different parts. So what Forgeline tries to do is they preload their materials. So they've got tons and tons of barrels and rims and centers. That is kind of their inventory.
I see.
So that when you order, chances are they can, as soon as the machines are finishing up the existing runs, they can pull the raw material off the shelf and make yours. And then
they'll keep the components in stock,
right?
And then everything is made to order,
right? And
gotcha.
We're discussing some availability, turnaround times, and it's based on certain races because 50% of their market is still racing.
Good.
Solid, yeah. The other 50% being the street market. And they were talking about how if there's a big race coming up, they'll get a spike because guys want wheels, they want them repaired, whatever. But they can turn wheels around in 3, 4, 5 weeks pretty consistently, as opposed to 2 or 3 months like a lot of others, because they manage that material load.
Gotcha.
And then, like you're saying, part of the challenge is knowing what to buy, because wheels are tricky, especially when you're starting from a blank sheet with every one.
Right.
So you can call them and say, hey, I got 67 GTO that I'm building, and I want to put 18s and 19s on it, and I like this particular series because they're different series and styles. Can you tell me what's going to fit?
Yeah.
And they have that info.
Do they?
Yeah, they'll ask you what brakes. They'll ask you what your usage, because they might say, well, you like this particular series, but it's designed for Miata spec racing, and your GTO weighs a lot more. So maybe you need to be in this series over here.
Right.
And then if you don't know, they can send you templates and stuff and have you measure, and they're willing to hold your hand on all that stuff, because nobody wants to get custom wheels wrong.
Oh boy, howdy.
Because they're made for that application, But the good side is that, say something is off, you can unbolt the center and put it in a different barrel and correct that. And what they find is they've got repeat customers who, it's like every year they want to change something. So they'll send the wheels back, have them unbolt them, strip them, repowder coat them a different color, and put them back together and send them back, So you can do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, maybe they want to change the center. They can send it back, say, I want this center in here now rather than the one we have, and I wanted this color, and then...
Yeah, I think when it comes to just swapping centers out, depending on the other specs on the wheel, it might be more prudent to get just a new wheel. But if you're going to change that, send your wheel in and get your wheel back, just have it, change colors or get straightened or something. They do it all the time. And another neat thing is they also mount tires too. So what we have challenges with is, we're talking about some expensive wheels, and having gone through this process now, I understand and respect why. It's because they're done right, and there's a lot to it, and they're all hand done. It's not like there's push the button and it cranks out 100 sets.
Right.
So when you get them, you got to choose your tire mounter carefully.
Yes, you do. Oh my God, I scratched it.
Right. And typically we're talking about an oversized diameter, wide wheel, which means it's going to be a skinny sidewall, high performance tire, which gets more challenging to mount with every one of these variables thrown in.
I believe it.
Yeah, and you got to work with somebody who's got a machine that isn't going to mar up that finish or scratch it. So, but today, now you can have your tires sent to them, or you can get tires. They got an arrangement with your tire rack, so you can pick tires and wheels, and then they'll mount them. And the shipping bill is going to be a little bit more, but that tire is actually going to protect that wheel in shipping.
True.
and
Good
you'll
point.
know it's done
Real
right.
Good point.
Yeah. So that's a heck of a service. But the picture that you saw was holding the carbon wheel, right? So that's the next generation. And I thought I knew a little bit about this stuff. And, as typical, I don't know anything. But so how that story came to be is in a parallel universe to the Shard brothers who grew up racing and grew up around wheels their whole life. Mm-hmm. There's a gentleman named Colin Snyder, and Colin is a younger guy, but he grew up racing go-karts and stuff, and he was part of the Formula SAE program in Kansas. And what that Formula SAE is a college engineering level racing series where big engineering schools compete against each other.
Oh, sweet.
And the engineers build the cars themselves. So our mutual friend Paul was at the U of I Formula SAE program many years ago.
Is that right?
Yeah. And
I did not know that.
Yep. And this gentleman Colin was on the SAE team, and he was looking at the wheels of the kart that they raced, and they were aluminum. And he thought, I bet we could save a bunch of weight if we made these in carbon. So he took it upon himself to make a set of carbon fiber kart wheels, and they raced them, and the thing acted totally different. It was just a huge improvement over the aluminum wheel. Ooh. So Colin actually came out and was on site at Forgeline and interviewed him too about his whole process and what's the deal, because carbon fiber is a technology that's been around for a while, and it's typically a woven material of carbon filaments, little tubes basically, that you immerse in a resin, kind of like fiberglass, and then mold it into a shape, and then you put it in what they call an autoclave, which is like a vacuum bag that sucks all the air out. And then when it hardens, you take it out of the mold and you've got your part. And you don't see carbon wheels. You see carbon wings. You see carbon prosthetics, legs and stuff. You see carbon fiber body panels and accessories, but you don't really see wheels. And there's a reason for that, and it's because it's super, super hard to do.
Okay.
And what Colin noticed, and so Colin got an engineering degree, and then he went to work for a couple companies that do big league composites. He worked for an aircraft company. He worked for a defense company, just gleaning as much as he could with a life goal, truly, of making carbon wheels. Huh. He is so focused. This is what this guy wants to do. He doesn't want to make carbon fiber keychains or airplane parts. Wheels is what he wants to make.
All right.
And he's convinced that the entire world will be rolling on carbon fiber wheels at some point because of the benefits of the wheel. So I first saw the Carbon Forge line, they call it the Carbon Forged series, at SEMA last year, and I thought, that looks great. Oh, I bet it's light. This is all I know, Well, it turns out that a woven carbon material doesn't work for a wheel. It's not strong enough. And the strength that they were having problems with, and the Shard brothers at Forgeline had experimented with carbon wheels, and they could get the overall strength to be strong enough to where it would handle like impact going on the road. Where they were having problem is as soon as you put the tire on it and inflate the tire and it seats on the bead, it would literally blow the wheel apart.
Really?
Because that is I guess that's a tension.
That would be a tensile strength.
Right.
Versus compression strength.
Right. And the material wasn't strong enough to hold itself together.
Oh, I'll be darned.
So they kind of gave up on it. And the other challenge that Forgeline had is, remember, their stuff is modular, so they have interchangeable barrels and faces. Well, how do you have that with a carbon wheel, right? Mm-hmm. So what Colin figured out is instead of using a weave, he used a carbon braid. So it's a different...
Oh.
Right? It's almost, I don't want to call it a rope, but it's a ropier kind of braid which changes the angles on a carbon weave. It's a 45 or a 90-degree angle of the weave. On the braid, everything's intertwined together.
Sure.
Right? And it's stronger.
Yeah.
So this guy has proprietary patented technology on his resins. He made his own resins because they had to be a certain strength. He's got design patents on the whole thing and came up with the barrel. And just like the aluminum version for Forgeline, there is a flange towards the front outside of the wheel that they drill and bolt a face to.
Really?
So now it's the same design philosophy as what Forgeline does, because you can. So the Colin started a company called Emergent Technology, Emergent Carbon Wheels, I guess, and all Emergent does is make the barrel. And it's a great story because Colin wanted to work with Forgeline.
Oh, nice.
He had this. You got to hand it to him. He's got his missions. I'm going to make these wheels. I'm going to work with Forgeline. So in order to approach them, he got a SEMA display booth, which costs a lot of money, and he had some grant money and some investment cash to get this company off the ground. But he thought to himself, if I have a booth, I'm different from a guy that's just walking up with a wheel saying, hey, the old traveling salesman, the suitcase and a wheel.
Right.
So
it gives a little air of legitimacy to him.
Yes. And it worked because the Shard brothers walked by and they saw this display and they went, wow, that's pretty neat. And it looks like it might fit our process. And, so Colin approached him and said, hey guys, I'm Colin. This is my carbon wheel. This is what I've done to develop this. We've done non-destructive testing. We've done engineering on it. It's proprietary stuff. And we think it's kind of neat. Well, Forgeline, Steve and Dave said, we really want this. And we're not saying we want to be exclusive because, maybe that's not fair, but maybe we can work something out where we get it first and then the rest of the world gets it later. So, Colin went for it, and that's how that marriage came to be, right?
Sweet.
So eventually Emergent will be supplying barrels to other companies, but right now it's through Forgeline. And the fun thing is once they got the agreement going, Forgeline applied their 25 years of Forgeline professional wheel engineering to the barrel and said, this might not work and this might not work, but if we tune it up a little bit, we'll get there. So they did some design revisions and ended up getting there. And cool. now you can buy these wheels. Now the benefits are that it's lighter, but B, it's so on that big 20-inch wheel that I was holding. Once it's assembled with the aluminum face, it weighs like half of what the aluminum one does, and it is far stronger at the barrel than the aluminum. And people have a hard time understanding the carbon is stronger and lighter.
Right.
So it delivers both. Well, why does that matter? Well, at the wheel side, you have what is known as the unsprung mass.
Right.
And this is your control arms, your spindle, your caliper, brake hardware, and of course the wheel and tire. And these are riding on the ground, and then the springs are supporting the car. Well, as you go down the road, if there's a disturbance in the road and you have a high sprung or unsprung mass, the inertia that is in the weight of the wheel and everything is hard to move and put back where you wanted it to go after you go over a bump, right? So you can envision, in the gym, you got the heavy bag and you got the speed bag. If the heavy bag is a heavy wheel and the speed bag is a light wheel, you punch that heavy bag, it doesn't fly across the room. It has inertia. It stays in place. Well, that's how it is with your wheel and tire. Now, if you make that half the mass, right, you hit that bump, boom, that suspension system can react quickly because it doesn't have to overcome all that inertia, and then it goes back into position. Well, why does that matter? Well, that matters because as you hit a disturbance in the road surface, you lose traction. Lose traction, you lose control. So it's all about keeping control of the vehicle, and especially in a race car, but even a regular driver. So that's the first one. The next one that I thought was pretty cool is that inertia also applies to steering the car. So now your steering system takes less horsepower, if you will, and leverage to be able to turn the wheels left to right.
Right.
And if you design the whole car, well, maybe you can take some of the robustness and weight out of the steering components themselves, because you don't need something as strong to turn the wheels.
Point.
Right. And the same way with the suspension, if you don't need to control all that mass, you can have a lighter spring rate, you can change the shock and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So then the third one I thought was pretty cool is the polar moment of inertia, and that is the spinning inertia. So Colin came up with a neat demo where they mounted two hubs on a stand, and they had a traditional wheel and then a carbon wheel, and they wrap a fishing string around each one with a fishing weight. And the goal here is that you release the weight, and the gravity pulls the weight down, which turns the wheel, right?
Okay.
On the carbon wheel, a small little fishing weight, you drop it, and all of a sudden the wheel spins, and then the weight hits the ground. On a heavier wheel, you let go of the weight, it doesn't do anything. That weight does not have enough energy to overcome the inertia of that wheel. So now it's easier to spin these wheels to get them going, and it's far easier to stop them and keep them from spinning. So now your brakes don't work as hard, and your car will accelerate faster because you don't have to overcome all this inertia.
There's less mass to overcome, right?
Right. And another characteristic of the carbon is that it's a little bit compliant, a little bit resilient. I don't want to say it flexes, but there's a comfort factor as well. And on a safety thing, they sent me a destructive test where they took a 2,100 pound weight and dropped it essentially on a wheel and tire that's inflated. And on the aluminum one, the rim actually bent a little bit, deformed slightly, which eventually would lead to a failure. The carbon one, the weight bounced, and
wow,
it didn't even care. And they said that when these carbon wheels fail, so you hit a giant pothole or wreck a car or whatever, it doesn't instantly bend and stay bent. It will, it'll change shape, kind of come back, but it will slowly lose air and eventually go flat. But you get to retain control much longer.
I see.
So if you have an incident at speed, you can, you hit that bump, you hit the brakes, and by the time you stop, maybe you got a few more minutes, and then it goes flat.
Okay.
So, yeah, right.
That's good safety.
It is. It's very intriguing to see what they've learned. And then on the manufacturing side, Porsche, even Ford now has a carbon fiber wheel on the Shelby GT350R Mustang.
Do they?
They do. But they're also Ford Motor Company, so they've got a lot of resources to make stuff.
I see.
And the entire wheel is essentially one molded piece of carbon fiber. So the rim, the face. Now, if you're a custom wheel manufacturer, that would mean if you want a smaller diameter, you have to make another mold.
Right.
If you want to make a different style, you make another mold. You want another width, you make another mold, which becomes cost prohibitive from a custom manufacturing standpoint because you got to engineer every one of those molds and blah, blah, blah. So the beauty there, again, gets back to that modular design concept of Forgeline. So Emergent can make however many different barrel sizes, which is far easier, and then Forgeline does their face, and then you're good to go. The downside, boy, are they expensive.
I was wondering if we were going to get to that part.
Oh yeah, that's part of it, and they don't make any bones about it. I mean, everybody knows these are expensive wheels.
Well, I mean, come on, it's a newer technology. It has to be until it's a bit more prevalent. There's more out there,
right?
You know, these things need to start paying for themselves, and
so I mean, you're talking like 15, 16 grand for a set of four wheels. Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't think it was that expensive.
Yeah. Right.
Boy, howdy.
Yeah, and to a guy like you and I, it's like, that's insane. But if you are a somebody of the caliber that can do that, they see the value, and the value is being recognized because they're selling the wheels. and you have people. In fact, Forgeline was just at Barrett-Jackson in Florida, and they were being approached because they were doing some theatrics with the wheel that I was holding, kind of juggling them around, and in fact throwing it on the ground and bouncing it, and not hurting it. And you can imagine what a sideshow that was kind of creating people checking it out. And the one factor we didn't talk about on the carbon is the appearance. The appearance is insane. You look at it, and I made the distinction that the wheel is very precise. The rim is precise. It's true. It's round. It's got holes in it, for the face. It's a very man-made, precise-looking thing. The braided carbon, because you can see through the resin, you see the fibers, is very organic-looking because those braids do what they want to do when you put it in the mold. I mean, they align to a certain degree, but it looks like a snakeskin kind of in there.
Oh, really?
So there's this awesome, intriguing combination of unnatural and man-made and organic appearance, and the weaves catch the light in a certain way where they kind of do a dance, and so it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And people were looking at that across the room, and then they're seeing that it's strong and everything else, and people would ask, I need a set. How much are they? And they would tell them, they're $15,000-$16,000, and they had a lot of people who said, well, I just spent 12 or 14 grand on a set of custom aluminum wheels, for my Ferrari or for my for whatever, because that's in that market, and they said for another couple I could have bought these. You're kidding me. So that was also intriguing to me because I'm not in that universe.
No, I'm not even. I'm nowhere near that universe, man.
No, I don't think I own outside of our truck. I don't think I own a car that's worth that at this point.
Likewise,
but there are those who certainly are in that world, and they need to go there first, so that eventually maybe you and I will have that opportunity.
I mean, I certainly see professional race teams really getting all over this. If this helps them win a few more races or even one more race because of the dynamics that these wheels will give you for your race car, I see that being a winner. And like I said, I see race teams jumping all over this. If that much unsprung weight to shed is huge.
Yeah. Oh, it is. And there's one kind of final little challenge that they are they're kind of going through, and it is regard to racing. And they put these wheels on their race cars and beat them up on the track and didn't have any problems. But there is one aspect that they're not 100% satisfied with yet, but they're getting there. And if you look at the Ford Shelby GT350R wheels, that OE level carbon wheel, the insides are black. They're not visible carbon, and that's part of the attractiveness of these wheels is that visual appeal. They want it.
Sure.
And what Ford found, and unfortunately Forgeline found the same thing, is that there's a very rare situation on a racetrack where a piece of something can get between the caliper and the barrel and scratch up the carbon.
Oh.
And Ford solved it by painting a black ceramic coating on the inside of the wheel.
Okay.
And Forgeline doesn't want to do that because they like the way these look.
Yeah, they look pretty cool.
So trying to keep the high standard of performance and appearance all together, that's something that they're kind of working on because they don't want to just paint the inside of the thing black.
Yeah.
Right. And they found that this occurrence of getting debris between the caliper and the barrel doesn't really happen on the street. It's purely under super high intensity race situations. So for the street wheels, they're fine with it, but on the race side, that's a consideration. But they also pointed out that on the aluminum wheels for years, racers were saying, we'll run these things unfinished. We don't care. We just need the high performance wheel. And Ford's was like, yeah, but we care. We don't want people running around on unfinished wheels. They'll perform the same way.
That kind of goes back to what we were talking about. It's kind of a departure, but if somebody has their car in your shop and you're painting it, and they say, well, I really don't care how good the paint looks, just paint it. Yeah,
right.
But we care. You know,
Right.
this is our name on this, and it
Right.
needs to be right.
Yeah, so you
I
came
get
to
that.
us, for a reason, and you buy Forgelines, and that's the interesting thing about that 50-50 race versus street market split. I'm pretty convinced, and now our audience knows the story. You didn't know the story. I didn't know the story behind that company.
No, I didn't. I had no idea.
And knowing that story, I feel, compelled to maybe someday own a set of these wheels because I like what they're doing,
Yeah.
They're doing everything in the United States, advancing technology, using,
Right.
tried and true stuff. And that's one of the reasons why they hired us, is to help them tell that story. Mm-hmm. But even not knowing that story, half their market is going to street people who think they just look cool. Right? So that's an indicator of how important that finish is.
Yeah.
And style.
I mean, knowing their story now, I want to be an evangelist for Forgeline. I mean, that's just great stuff. Everything they're doing is right, I think.
Right. It's admirable. Like I said, it's a likable company that you want to see do well. And there are others. I'm not saying they're the only ones by any stretch.
Right.
And that's what I love about this industry, is that there are so many people that saw something from racing or from doing whatever they were doing and were fueled by that to make that their career. And you want these people to succeed, and these companies. Touching on our last topic of the knockoffs and everything else,
Right.
they're out there. But when you see the real deal, you want them.
Yeah.
You want to support them. So
I don't see knockoff carbon wheels coming around anytime soon, though. I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you what, if somebody makes a set, they're going to find out right away that it doesn't work.
Right. Exactly my point.
Yeah. Well, and another interesting thing was, I said, so are we going to see brand extensions from Forgeline? For example, we're going to be seeing forged aluminum door handles and steering wheels and shift balls and stuff. And they said, no.
No. All right.
We're a racing wheel company.
All right.
This is what we do. And I love that, because, how often do you see, somebody, and again, it's an indicator of a privately held company too. You don't have an investment group saying, well, you could make Forgeline bumpers and put them on 10,000 Camaros, it's money. And
right.
No. This is what we do.
Right.
So that was admirable also. And it really made me think about how we do stuff in our shop and how we run our business. Because everything we do is custom.
Sure.
But it's not as defined. Because for them, it's a size, style, finish, done. Those are your options. It's every option of a wheel, but it's specific.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can limit our customers to those choices. But maybe we need to look at a few things that are way out of our wheelhouse that we might nice.
Nice.
that are way off our spectrum, and say, well, maybe we don't need to be doing that because we're better at doing this. And an example might be, sometimes, somebody brings us in a car that is kind of a collector, kind of an older car, but has like some miserable timing problem that's going to take all kinds of diagnostic. Nobody wants to be doing that in our. That's more of a mechanic job,
right?
Right. But if you want a fuel injection conversion on it and you want custom metal work, that's what we do.
Right. Like say if that guy who had his Dodge Murata restored, if he came in and said, "Hey, I need it tuned up," well, it's a Murata. And we're not really in the tune-up business on that kind of a car.
But to him we are, because we did that car.
You did the car. I mean, you did the whole resto on it.
Yeah.
Which is what you do.
But at the same time, and we joke about that car because we love the customer, we love the car, but we're not in the Murata restoration business. I'm not waking up tomorrow hoping I have a whole parking lot full of Muratas that need to be restored.
Right.
I highly value that job. Like I said, I thought it was a great car. I loved it. It was an example to show people that you don't need, something super unusual to have a car that means something to somebody. And I respect that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But it gets a little tricky, because I'm not saying we need to turn work away that we don't think is cool enough or whatnot. But Rod, our sales and marketing director, had a great point, and he said, you need to have your technicians bringing their A game to the stuff that they're passionate about. And if they're working on a project that they're not passionate about, instead of what they would like to do. So, if our lead fabricator is doing the tune-up on the Murata, he isn't doing what he wants to do.
Right.
So his passion drops, and then everybody gets frustrated, right? So Ben, our cameraman, while we were at Forgeline, took some time to talk to the guys running all those machines. And you might look at these jobs as kind of being repetitious. I mean, you're taking aluminum out, putting it in the machine, running the program, taking it out, grab the next one. Especially the grinding guys. I mean, these guys are grinding wheels all day, But every one of them were like, we love this job. We're making something that's going to leave here and go on a racetrack and go win races all over the world. We don't know where it's going to go,
Right.
And it's got to look awesome. It's got to perform. And the variety is in every wheel is, they're going to make 4 at a time. So these 4 and then the next 4 and the next 4. And to Forgeline's credit, they value their employees and they want to make sure that they're all challenged and that they understand that there's a bigger picture, for what they're doing, which is, again, admirable. It's
it sure is.
They also recently landed some deals where they're the homologation spec wheel in certain racing series where that's what you run is Forgeline wheels.
Really?
So yeah, there's a Camaro racing series and a few other. There's a Mustang deal that you buy the car from Chevrolet, for example, as a ready to run race car. You put your graphics and do your tune or whatever, but it comes on Forgelines, and that's an indicator that says they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's a spec wheel for a full series.
Yeah. That's pretty slick.
Yeah, so it was cool. It was a great experience.
Good for them.
Yeah, and like I said, I learned a lot. So again, I'm not here to. They're not paying me to say any of this stuff,
right?
But I think it's important to share these kind of stories because it really makes you think. Yeah, and it was inspiring. So,
right on, man. Good. I'm glad we were able to do that.
Yeah, and it's funny because you'll see people who. Right away you put a picture of a car with Forgeline wheels on it, and they'll be like, "Oh, those I don't like that style. It's too modern looking, or these too big, too skinny of a tire." And I get all that, but
that's fine. I mean, that wheel choice is a completely subjective thing.
Correct. But I do think that if that car is supposed to go do something, that all of a sudden that style choice isn't the driving motivator, and if you knew what they were, you might not. You might not have that same opinion.
Right. I got you.
And don't get me wrong. There is a huge marketplace for cast wheels and for lower buck stuff all day long.
Yeah.
And that's what's on my own car. A set of cast aluminum wheels because my 62 Ford's never going to see a road course, so I'm not worried about that safety factor. These wheels basically they got to be round and they have to look cool. And there's that's the vast majority of the wheel business. And I'm fine with that. They're fine with that. Everybody's fine with it. But it's when you start to do something a little bit more is when you need that deal. So there you go, man. That's more than you needed to know or initially wanted to know about my trip to Ohio.
Well, I'm glad I know about it, though. I'll tell you what. So it seemed pretty interesting stuff. Really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, very much.
Sounds like a great company. You're doing the right thing, and I hope we see a lot more from them.
Yep. Well, they'll be 25 years old next year, so I don't think they're going away. So
good.
All right. Well, I'm curious to know how bad I botched this trivia question. So
did it come to you at all throughout the episode?
It didn't.
No. Dang it.
It didn't. I'm not that mentally limber anymore. So
you know what? Speaking of that. Somebody was trying to teach me something at work the other day, and he was going so fast. And I said, listen, man, my brain is like a dried up sponge. I mean, you start pouring water on it, it just sheds the water because it can't absorb anything. You got to be slow with it. You got to let my brain slowly expand to take in the knowledge.
Nice, a dried up sponge.
Yeah, it's exactly what it's like sometimes. He's just like zipping things at me. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know how old I am, right?
Yes, right.
You got to be cool here. You got to be easy on me.
Yeah, I got a
little
smack of that this morning. As a matter of fact, my college, my alma mater sends out their alumni newsletter. So my thing from Illinois State University came in the mail, and it dawned on me that today's college graduates weren't even born when I graduated from college.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's nice.
By a couple years. So, and the surprising thing is people say, well, you look so young. You just...
Amazing.
Right. Yeah,
How do you do it?
Only the blind have said that.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Our trivia question answer. I asked you what a Mustang in the mid-'60s, actually from 65 to 73 they had to do this. What was it marketed as? And Kevin said the old M1.
Yeah,
sounds like an expressway in England, doesn't it?
Yes.
But the correct answer is the T5.
See?
T5.
See, I told you it's a number letter, and I said TKO.
Yeah. You said T1. It should like T2 or something.
No,
I'm like,
I did that.
I was trying to hold it together.
I said T2, I said Mark II, but I also said TKO, and you looked at me,
TKO.
and my brain was getting there because a TKO is a stronger version of the T5 transmission.
Exactly.
So
and I was thinking,
I
almost threw a tidbit out there to say, think transmission.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it. Couldn't do it to you.
That's it. The Ford T5.
Yep.
Darn it.
Yeah, I just ran across an article about it from that Haggerty put out last year. I'm like, this is pretty interesting stuff. So there's a trivia question in there, and that's what it's got to be.
Yeah, how about that? Well, I told you, I knew the how and why. I just didn't know the what.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in your case, we asked about the technology of the auto-dimming headlights pioneered by General Motors, eventually adopted by all the domestic manufacturers. What year did it come out? And the bonus, and I'll give you any of the three. What was it called? What did it change to? You said 1994. It was the auto high beam dimmer, and you said it evolved into the safety dim on Cadillacs with a T.
Oh, that's the worst name I ever heard in my life.
for the thing. Well, so 1994, you're pretty close. It came out in 1952.
Oh, Jesus! Oh, my God. I got to step away from this right now. Holy Jesus.
But it did appear first on Cadillac, so you were right there.
Oh, look at me.
But Cadillac, Oldsmobile, Pontiac, Buick all had this. And initially it was called the Autronic Eye.
Ooh, the Autronic Eye.
Yes, and it looked out on the dashboard. It looked like a War of the Worlds alien thing that looked out. And it was a photo sensor that would sense the oncoming light, and it would trigger some vacuum tubes and relays, and it would click down the high beams to low beams. By 58, there was a sensitivity adjustment because people were driving down these highways at night, and a reflective road sign would trigger it.
Oh, nice.
It would flick the beams on and off. And then eventually they put that sensitivity knob on there. By 1960, I believe, it became the Guide-Matic.
The Guide-Matic.
And the Guide-Matic, it was kind of neat. It actually had what they called the safety salute. Not T, but the safety salute. And the safety salute was right before it dimmed, it would flash the lights off. So the oncoming car would know that, I understand my high beams are on. I'm going to flick them to the off position and turn the low beams on, so you know that I'm being courteous.
That I'm on board here.
Yeah, right.
Oh,
and eventually it became part of cars today. They all do it now. You don't even notice it. But that's pretty wild. So also part of the Twilight Sentinel package on GM cars, which turns the headlights on at dusk automatically and then off in daylight.
Right.
Yeah, so they got all that stuff together.
Yeah, mine does that. So, I had an '83 Cadillac a long time ago, Sedan DeVille, and it kept after you shut the car off, the headlight stayed on
Correct.
for a period of time. And this is pretty uncommon, and probably at least 50-60% of the time someone will say, hey buddy, you left your lights on.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, no, they'll turn themselves off. It's cool,
Yeah.
man. It's cool.
Yeah, and there was a knob on there. You could adjust that delay. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was part of the Twilight Sentinel package.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there you go. So unfortunately,
Yeah. Wrongity, wrong.
I think that's correct. Wrong. So good to know we're both losers today.
Yeah. Yeah, well, shoot.
Yeah, but we're still winners, even though we lost.
Yeah, winner, chicken dinner.
Yeah. So now I remember it's T5.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. All right. Well, listen, it's been fun, and I appreciate you listening to my expounding upon the wheel industry.
No, I enjoyed it. I really like learning about new things like that.
Compelled to share.
It's pretty cool.
And next time, I also thought we'd give the listeners a little more suspense about the GTO, which we'll hear about more next time.
Boom.
How about
Right
that?
on.
Yeah.
Because there's really not a lot to tell.
Well, hey, don't ruin it for them. Come on.
Sorry.
You have till the next one to get something done.
Yeah, I'll get something done this week.
Yeah. So be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. Where else? You could hear us on TuneIn Radio and on the website at v8radio.com. Also, the Facebook page is Buzzing with Action at V8 Radio. So thanks for hanging out with us. As always, keep the shiny side up. Hopefully sunny now that it's nice out.
Right.
And we will talk at you next time on V8 Radio.